Have you ever put out a fleece? Do you even know what I'm talking about? Hello, I'm Dawnita from prairie-trail.com. Um, we talk about lots of different things. Tin hat topics. I don't have my tin hat on right now. I have a little tin hat crown. We have fun here. um, I recently put out a fleece. Now, if you don't understand what that term means, in the Bible, in Judges, there was this man named Gideon, and God told him to do something. And he was like, huh? Have you ever had that you really feel like you're being impressed by the Lord to do something specific or to say something specific? But then you realize, number one, everybody's probably going to think you're crazy. Or is it really from the Lord? Is this something that I want? Or is this something that the enemy is putting, this idea here? Or is this really from the Lord? Right? I think we doubt ourselves a lot, don't we? I know I do. So, recently I've been struggling with a lot of different things. We've got bills to pay. Just put it that way, and the economy is what it is. And I think everybody's struggling with the same thing, and trying to bring in some extra money without working outside of the home is a struggle. And even if you're working outside of the home, there's a lot of extra expenses that come with that. And that's a struggle too, right? So, I'm always trying to figure out how to cut expenses and how to do things differently. But in being an online presence and having the blog and the newsletter and the YouTube channel and the podcast and all the things, there's a lot of little expenses that just kind of add up to that. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, Lord, is this really what you want me to be doing? I've been blogging or had some kind of online website since the mid 90s, okay, early to mid 90s, ever since we've had internet out here. So I've tried to stay kind of on top of that type of world. And I've done it a few different ways. At one point, I had 3 different blogs. One was a health news, one was a family newsletter, and one was the homeschooling days, DACE. So I took all 3 of those in 2014 and rebranded to the Prairie Trail. And I've really enjoyed it. I love my website. The theme that I picked out is the same theme that I've had the whole time. And I've got moved everything over from those other blogs onto that one and have just kind of added to it until I've got a monstrosity of a website. And at this point, I just need to either take it all down and forget it, or figure out a way to get more people to see it and see if I can package some things up so that people will be interested in paying for a few things. Started a Patreon and doing different things to just try to give different options and for different budgets. And so that hopefully I've got something that everybody is going to be interested in. I've got the book on Amazon and different things. So, and we've all got different things. Some people can make jelly, and some people can, do canned goods or sell honey, or, I do like to go to craft shows every once in a while and sell things that I made. I made this Bible cover. Aha, come on. Da-da-da. Yeah, Bible cover. That was a lot of fun. So anyway, and aprons and things like that. And I enjoy doing stuff like that, but it doesn't tend to handmade items don't tend to bring in much money. by the time you pay for your resources and like in sewing, I have to pay for maintenance for my sewing machine. And I try to do as much as I can, but occasionally it needs to go to a professional, right? That's like I cut my own hair, but occasionally I need professional help. So anyway, um, we need to, I think bringing in extra money and figuring out how to either barter or sell items that we make in either our homemaking or our homestead is an important part of it. Okay. It's part of the Proverbs 31 woman. Whenever you go through there, she's bringing in income, so I don't think it's unbiblical at all for a woman to be trying to help with things like that. And so we've been just talking about the various things, and my husband's great. He doesn't want me to worry about it, but at the same time I do. I can't help it. So I pray and have faith the Lord's going to take care of things. But he and I argue about this on a regular basis because his timing and my timing are not where I think they ought to be. So anyway, I put a fleece out recently. And okay, Lord, if this happens, then I'll take it that it's your will for me to continue in this particular thing that I was putting the fleece out about. Now I'm very careful about putting a fleece out. Gideon, he put a fleece outside of his tent and said, okay, Lord, if this is what you want, then make the fleece wet and the ground dry in the morning whenever I wake up. And there's dew all over the ground in the morning. So when he woke up, the fleece was dry and the ground was, wet. And he's like, okay. But he didn't take that by itself. He said, okay, now the next night, because that could be a coincidence, right? And the next night he wanted the fleece wet and the ground dry, or the opposite of what. And the next morning, that's what it was. So he knew that it was God speaking to him, and then this is particularly what God is wanting him. And sometimes when people in the Bible would question the Lord would get a little irritated with him, or the angels seemed like they would, why are you questioning God? And then sometimes God was very understanding. Most of the time, it seems like he was very understanding about it. Like, Mary saying, I'm not even married yet. How am I going to have a baby? And the Lord just being very understanding about that and saying, hey, I'm going to make it work. It's going to be okay. So, I'm like everybody else. I feel like every once in a while I'm hearing from the Lord, but I want to make sure that it's him or that I'm hearing him right. Okay. Sometimes we hear something and we automatically interpret it with our understanding. And I found out a lot of times that I've had to pivot my understanding because what he was directing me to, I had the general idea, but I didn't really understand the specifics and where he was leading me. And sometimes he just gives us little bits at a time. And so anyway, I put a fleece out, but I was very careful and not saying, Lord, if you don't do this, then I'm not going to do that. I think we have a tendency to do that. And I've heard a lot of people, and I've been guilty of it, of, okay, Lord, I think I hear you. And I think this is what you want. But just to make sure, if this doesn't happen, I'm putting a fleece out. If this doesn't happen, then it's not this. Or they'll put a fleece out and say, if this happens, then I'll know that I need to do this. And sometimes it's in a manipulative way. If this particular thing happens, then, and I have even seen the Lord take some really ridiculous fleeces and outright go against what is said. Absolutely. The fleece did not prove. And they still don't take it as the Lord speaking to them. And they're so convinced that God's will is something specific that they're like, okay, I'm going to put this fleece out. And if this happens, then I'll know this is the Lord's will. And it doesn't happen. And they'll just put out another fleece and put out another fleece until they feel like they've heard what they want to hear from God. And that's not the way to do it. We need to be careful. Um, we don't need to try to manipulate God. You know, if you're hearing from the Lord and he's telling you to do something that's potentially uncomfortable or going to be hard to do or whatever, it's okay to test that, but not, overdo it or not do it in a way that we're just trying to avoid the work, right? Because what I'm putting the fleece out on, it is work. It's something that I have to work towards. And it's like, okay, Lord, if I don't see these results by this amount of time, then I'm going to take it that you're wanting me to do this a different way. I'm not saying that he doesn't want me to do it at all, but that there's got to be some other option that I'm missing that he's going to reveal to me in the process, right? So, and he's faithful to do that. He's faithful. It's easy whenever you're online to think that you have to do things a certain way, and even offline, we do the same thing. If you go to like craft shows, in or flea markets or things like that, and you have booths at these things, you tend to think sometimes that you need to have items that are going to be popular for people. And that's not always the case. Or you tend to think that you need to have so many of each item, or that you need to have all the things, a lot of variety. And that's not necessarily the case. It works for some people to have a variety of items, and then it works better for some people to only have a few items, right? So I like taking aprons, sunbonnets, my books, and then some of the children's crafts. If there's something fun that has come along that I've enjoyed doing, mug rugs or something different, I may take that. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to make a whole bunch of stuff that might not sell, you know. And I only want to make things that, number one, I enjoy making, and number two, that if they don't sell, I can give them as gifts and they will be appreciated. Okay. So if I'm crocheting stocking caps, that's something that's an easy gift to give, and somebody's going to like that, right? So I think we have to kind of think of it that way. I've got a lot of things that I offer through my website and the Patreon, and there's a lot of, we've got prepping workshops, we've got homemaking workshops, which include prepping. We've got, I've got a letter writing challenge that helps us get back to the old fashioned, actually writing letters, and even sending like emails and things like that. And just a lot of, and then the Bible studies that I've got in there. A lot of it's free. I've got most of my homeschooling stuff is absolutely free. Uh, as a matter of fact, I don't know that I charge for anything on the homeschooling stuff other than the book. And yeah, if you're in dire need and you email me, then I'm sometimes known to send somebody a PDF of the book for free, just because I want them to be able to have that to use with their children if they would like to. So I'm a softie, and I want people to be able to have the information. I don't want you to have to pay for it. And I've got a tip jar so that people can just give a little bit if they want to help buy me coffee. It's special. So yeah, but I just wanted to kind of touch on this because I've seen people use the fleece. And let's see, I was going to pull that up and tell you exactly where it is. It's in Judges. thought I had it up. Of course I didn't. So Judges 6 is where Gideon's story is. And you can read that there. And it does mention some Nephilim in there and what he was fighting. Some pretty interesting things happen with Gideon. Gideon is also mentioned in Hebrews chapter 10. And it's talking about faith here, the full assurance of faith. And it talks about, Gideon and these different ones. Let's see if I can find it. I did just have that. I do. Oh. See if I can find that. Sorry, guys. I thought I had this all figured out. Yeah. Oh, Hebrews 11. I must have hit the button. Hebrews 11 32. But it starts a little bit before that, of course. And Hebrews talks a lot about faith. Yeah, my computer. By faith this happened, by faith that happened, by faith, the walls of Jericho fell and people crossed the Red Sea. And by faith, Abraham, the prostitute, did not perish with those who were disobedient because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies that came into the land. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah and David and Samuel and all the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, and put foreign armies to flight. I mean, it is just a very powerful chapter in the Bible talking about faith did all of these things. And now we have even more to stand on with Yeshua, our Messiah, coming. So I encourage you to go through and read Hebrews chapter 11. In the ESV, the whole chapter is named by faith. By faith, all of this happened, and it's just amazing how the Lord worked and how Paul pulled all of the Old Testament together, saying by faith, all these things happened, right? And Gideon's story is definitely one of those that we should learn from, and we should be willing to use that. A lot of people want to say the Holy Spirit has spoken, thus saith the Lord, and that's great. As long as it is in line with Scripture, and if you don't doubt when the Lord is speaking to you at all, awesome. But I struggle with that. I have this relationship with the Lord that I know there are consequences for my actions, and which aren't always what they should be, and consequences for the actions of the generations before me that I'm still having to deal with, and my children are still having to deal with. And that's just part of life, right? And we're having to pay for the consequences of other people's free will around the world. So as many things are happening in the world, and free will is only free to the person in the process, and then everybody wants to be a victim and everybody wants to be free all at the same time. So it's kind of we're messed up, aren't we? We're just absolutely messed up. So anyway, putting out a fleece it's not a bad idea. It is a good tool to make sure that we're hearing the right things. But also we need to make sure that we're not using it as a manipulation against the Lord or against anybody else, because it can be used that way too. Well, I put out a fleece and this is God's will, so everybody else has to agree with me on it. Have you ever heard that one? Yeah, I have. So we need to be careful that we're not doing that. And I mean, those are some of the things that turn people off about Christians, because they're trying to push their will off on everybody else around them, and or saying God's will is this. And we need to be really careful about that. And in this day and age, especially when we really need to be showing that testimony of faith, we need to be doing it in such a way that we're not just sitting here waiting for God to do everything for us, but we have that assurance that where we fail, He's going to take up the slack, right? So anyway, I will quit rambling this time. If you have additional thoughts on this, have you done a fleece? Have you set out a fleece before and heard God's answer? Have you misinterpreted God's word to you before? Have you struggled with that? I think in relationships we do misinterpret each other sometimes, right? So we should expect that that's going to happen with the Lord as well, right? So anyway, let me know your thoughts, and if you have any other scriptures that you think tie into that, definitely leave them for me. I really appreciate you guys have always got some of the most interesting things to say in the comments, and I really appreciate that. And you know, I'll say this, we don't have to agree with each other all the time, right? I hardly ever even agree with myself. I mean, I don't agree with myself on a regular basis. So if I'm willing to argue with myself, then, you know, I don't expect all of you guys to agree with me 100% on everything either. We can just, but we learn from each other that way. It's like, oh, I never thought about that particular perspective, you know. And are you, trying to figure out additional ways to cut costs and save money and maybe bring in some extra income too? Are you guys struggling with that as well? Because I know my husband, Paul, is he wants to know a few things about what is going on with you guys. He wants to know, what is the weather like? What is the sky looking like? Because, with his P900, he likes to be out there taking pictures and stuff. And it's been really hazy lately. I just say that even here in the panhandle of Oklahoma, there's some haziness going on, whether it's from fires up north or what it is. And then he wants to know, how are prices and stuff going there where you guys are at? So, yeah, we're curious. We want to know. And if there's something that I can pray with you about, then please do let me know. I will put it on my prayer list and I will definitely be praying. And remember, you can make it through the death storms of life with God's divine help.